Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk.
Hola. Hello.
So we went to the coroner's office.
We did.
We forgot to talk about it last
fascinating.
Time. It was fascinating and was illuminating in way more ways than probably expected.
Yes.
Politically and background-wise and educationally. And the thing, I remember, I don't know what the laws are now. I remember for, say, psychiatrists in Colorado, I found out way back when that you didn't even have to have many qualifications for that. And apparently there's a lot of backwards things.
There are a lot of things you think people
like
need to be qualified for that they do not.
Correct.
Basically, in many parts of the country, to be a coroner, you have to have a pulse.
Yes. And here in Colorado, you have to be, over 18, a U.S. citizen. So last time in local area, I'll have a high school degree.
Yes.
To be able to cut people open and determine how they were killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is now, if you are elected to this position and you do not have a medical background, there is a course they put you through, but it's a week long?
Yeah.
It's a tiny, compared to somebody who's been to medical school. We learned so much. The most fascinating thing for me, it was all fascinating, but one of the things that I was so delighted to learn was that they really have a tank full of those beetles to clean the bones.
But we only have it because they were loaned some for a while and then asked if they could keep some when they had to give them back. And so
they got them from the zoo.
There was a super tiny skeleton in there when we were there.
I didn't look at what I didn't go in and look closely because I was like, I don't actually like bugs, and I've seen that on TV a lot. So I went, yep, tank full of bugs, got it.
I
Yay.
didn't get to pay super close attention to it, but we're talking infant size skeleton. Unless that's something they put in there as a holding.
Oh, who knows?
Well, and it wasn't a femur,
and that was
a rib cage.
Yeah, when the zoo asked for them back, they were like, "Can we keep half of them?" Yeah. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because you can grow the population
multiply like crazy."
Yeah, you'll have as many as you want as soon as you want.
Yeah. So that was there was all sorts of good stuff with pictures.
Yep.
There was a really good case. This one stuck. I love this. It's got to be yes,
because that's the one that stuck.
They had a little old lady, and what's the short version of this? There was a little old lady, and her body was found, and she had been dead for at least a year, they felt. Her poor little dog's body was in there and was mostly decayed as well. And then when they went upstairs, they found that it had basically been a drug den, and that they had papered a wall with pornography, or a room.
And there was stuff in the fridge. Fresh stuff in the
Yeah, so they knew somebody had been there fairly recently. And so a call was put out for this woman's children were all dead, but her grandchildren were still alive. And he gets a call from a cop at a hospital or whatever. And they're like, hey, we think we found the grandson that's been missing. And he has this condition and where he thinks there's bugs. It's a condition that people who say shoot up certain drugs get,
or are deeply psychotic.
Yes, and they think something's in their skin, under their skin, climbing out of their skin. Or only he didn't have the condition because there were really maggots in there, and there had been, when they found this woman's body, maggots all over her, meaning that there had been flies, and they had been laying eggs, and they had made maggots, and there had probably been this cycle for however long while she was decaying and while this drug den was in there. And so it was like her revenge from the dead that those same maggots had produced the flies and the maggots, and the flies had laid their little eggs in his open wounds.
Yeah.
And so they knew who had been living in her house for multiple reasons. It's fantastic. That is karma.
That
is so karma.
That is very karma.
And considering my day job, what it is, it's very circular.
Yes.
Thing right there. But yeah, we learned about different kinds of wounds and good stuff for writing.
And different definitions. So the coroner has a different definition of homicide than the legal police definition.
Yeah, there were also some things that made me think about the people who were claiming that there aren't even half of these COVID deaths, for example, because they're just putting COVID on all of their death certificates now. But then we learned that there's a section for contributing factors, and they have to put anything that might have been a contributing factor. And that I'm thinking most likely COVID was in those contributing factors. And the conspiracy theorists were blowing that up.
Yes.
But if you have a heart problem and you get, say, COVID or the flu or anything like that, it's got to be listed as a contributing factor because it may have contributed to that heart finally going out.
Yes.
That's not making shit up. They had COVID and they died while they had COVID, but it wasn't listed as the cause. It was a contributing factor. So there was stuff like that. Technical little things that we, of course, as writers want to have so we can have reality in there, but tons of stuff.
Have you seen, there's an ad for Paxlovid, the drug you take if you catch COVID early enough.
Yeah.
And it's this woman who's like holding a COVID test in her hand. She goes, COVID, and I'm overweight. Damn it. And I'm just like, to me, she might as well be saying, I have COVID and I'm fat. I'm going to die. And I'm like, look, chill the fuck out.
Calm your tits.
Yes. And then there's a guy who's like, oh no, I have COVID and I'm old. and then one has, I don't know, asthma or some comorbidity. And I'm just like, because let me tell you,
Paxlovid.
Thank you. I don't know why I can't say that word. That is a wonderful drug. And it will help a lot of people if it's caught in the early stages, if you catch it early enough. It's just like whatever the thing is you take when you get the flu, the real flu. However,
which worked real well for my husband since they gave it to him and not to me.
Yeah.
I'm still bitter.
They don't talk about the side effects.
Yeah.
Because I caught it early when I got COVID, and I just messaged my doctor and told her I had it. I wasn't expecting her to do anything. I was just letting her know so it could go in my file. And she said, message back, I called in a prescription for that drug and took one dose. And they say you may get an off taste in your mouth. Okay, off does not begin to touch the horrible, rancid, just spectacularly awful taste that is in your mouth for about 12 hours after you take it. But my mind did get taken off of it when I got the screaming diarrhea.
Oh, yeah.
That also goes with it. And when I saw her after that, I was like, yeah, I didn't take that. I said I took one dose and I would rather be fat and have COVID. That's how bad. And she goes, I am so sorry. She said, I took it because she had COVID like right before I did. And she said, she goes, I didn't have those side effects.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. Everybody has different side effects from everything. We didn't even call in. So our numbers are not even counted among the positive, but whatever.
My little rule following heart.
My shit is none of anybody's business. So there you have it. We just really don't go to the doctor for much.
I go once a year for my physical.
I don't even do that.
Oh. I do because I have to get my thyroid meds renewed, and she won't do that until I get a blood test. So,
oh yeah,
which makes sense.
That'll do it.
So
I really actually like that my new OBGYN actually keeps up on the literature and doesn't feel you need to come in for a PAP every year. Because the literature states you do not.
I don't.
But my last OBGYN was like, every year. And I'm like, nope, there's no reason for you to show your hand up my twat. Every single year. Thank you.
And Amy just spit her water all over the computer screen. My doctor
I found a new one.
Yeah, I get my exam done at my regular doctor's office. And she was just like, I was like, do I need to, because the nurse is like, all right, you need to put the robe on, put the gown on. And I was like, how much do I need to take off? And she's like, just your shirt.
No.
And I'm like, and I was just reading after age 65, I think. They're like, nah, you don't even really need them.
Breast exams?
No, the internal exams.
Oh,
the pap smears. And I'm like,
I will say this doctor strongly prescribes to have an annual mammogram, though. Because her mother died of breast cancer.
I generally don't get one every year, but I do get one every other year. I don't let it go longer than that.
I will say I just couldn't even fucking sign up for one. So it's been probably like 4 years. Well, Kaiser. Going through Kaiser, I went on, she was like, yeah, just schedule that and get that out of the way. I went on there and it was months and months and months out. So in the fall, I will have my next mammogram.
Oh my God.
I haven't had one since before the whole COVID thing. And I'd only had one then. So I'm not particularly high risk, though I haven't been tested. But my great grandmother was the only one who got it. And I think she was like 80 when she got it. So they're like, it's fine. Are you doing your self-breast exams? As much as I'm flossing. We don't have to discuss how much that is.
I like that. As much as I'm flossing.
I go in every time and they're like, oh, I can see you're flossing, doing great. And I'm like, really? Because I flossed one time since my last. I just don't get the buildup.
When I switched from a manual toothbrush to an electric toothbrush to the Oral-B.
That's my husband uses.
When I went in, my dentist's office was like, wow, we can tell your flossing has made such a difference.
Right.
And I just went, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm always just like,
It's just like our furnace guy used to say to Joe, wow, your wife must be a terrific housekeeper because there's like no dust on your, there's very little dust on the furnace filter. I said, did you laugh in his face or did you wait until he turned away? He's like, no, why would I laugh? I'm like, because
I don't dust.
I don't dust. I barely sweep. And God, I need to do that.
I don't know. The more the cats vomit on the floor, the more clean spots I have. So that's great. It's great. Our elder cat has been basically vomiting as soon as she eats half the time. So we're just getting there. But I stepped in it the other night and man, was I pissed.
Yep. But we could spend an entire episode talking about cat vomit stories.
That's true. But we won't. We won't.
No.
Do that to you.
No.
I will say it was in the dark because I turn off all the lights. Mm-hmm. So, because I like it at night, just turn out all the lights, walk around, do my thing. I could walk around in here blind, actually, which was my whole, I am going blind, actually, literally. And so I was always like, why don't I just learn some shit now? I can walk through this whole house. But cat vomit's going to throw me from that, isn't it?
It is.
I was like, no. And the problem is, it was both feet. Because by the time I registered, because I had really thick socks on, so the moisture didn't soak through until that second foot was about to land. And I was like, no. And it was too late. And then I just yelled and screamed and cussed a lot.
Fair.
Yeah. I had to wash my feet.
And it's for me. It's always I'm in the middle of making dinner, and I like step into the other room for something or to check something, and all of a sudden I realize, why is my foot wet?
Cats.
So it's in the middle of dinner. I have to stop what I'm doing and go upstairs and change my socks and clean up the mess and scald my feet.
Yes, I was going upstairs to take a bath, so I was like, well, I'm not putting those feet in that bath. So the shower got started first. All right, do you want to start?
I will start.
If you're thinking of starting a podcast or even just starting to research it, Buzzsprout is your go-to source for information and hosting. They have tons of videos and write-ups on everything you need to know about recording and distributing a podcast, and they even provide easy ways to get analytics on how your podcast is doing. We use Buzzsprout for our podcast hosting, and through them we've been able to connect with tons of resources and distributors. Following a link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and help support our show. A win-win. Not only do they help you get started, but they also do small things to encourage you, such as awarding you badges as you hit various milestones. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world.
I am going to talk about, this is not a mystery, but there is a lot of mayhem.
Okay.
Lots of nefarious, icky mayhem. Not the fun kind. Because sometimes they talk about the fun kind. I'm sorry, the Great Maple Syrup Heist is still my favorite story ever. And someone was like, how would you sell it? And I said, you put it in a barrel with your name on it, and then you sell it to the distributors.
Easy.
Yeah. Is this, so I'm like, okay, this is mayhem. There's not really a mystery involved. But is the main character a monster? Well, he did like to brag about how many people he caused to commit suicide.
Oh, nice guy.
Yeah. A gem.
A gem among men.
And some of you, when I say the name, will know who he is. And some of you won't. Anthony Comstock was born in March of 1844 in New Canaan, Connecticut. And I'm just assuming that back then it wasn't a bastion of fresh-faced preppies that it is today, named Chip and Bootsy. But his parents were fairly religious Congregationalists, which is one of the 30 wonderful flavors of Protestantism.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh, fuck, what's Congregationalist? And his dad was a farmer. But they were, fairly religious.
I believe farmers typically are pretty religious. It's a thing.
Well, the ones I knew weren't, but...
Once I knew were.
So, maybe we were doing it wrong, and that was the problem. Anyway, to be fair...
I would have been Southern and Western.
Yeah. Comstock enlisted in the Union Army to fight in the Civil War, serving with the 17th Connecticut Infantry. Equally fair to say, he was stationed in a part of Florida that did not see very much action. He was not on the front lines. He did keep himself busy, though. He was battling the use of alcohol and tobacco, gambling, profanity, and atheism among the armed forces.
Okie doke.
I'm like, if people are shooting at me, yes, I'm probably going to take every god's name in vain. And you're not going to stop me. I could just imagine how popular this made him. He didn't want them drinking. He didn't want them swearing. He didn't want them smoking. No fun at all.
God, can you imagine being stationed with that?
Yeah.
Fucker? Like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm away from home. I'm traveling. This is when I'm drinking.
And people are shooting at me.
I mean, were they in Florida?
I don't know.
No.
Not often, anyway. Not on a regular basis.
Just gang members.
So he was active in the Christian Commission, which was a part of the Young Men's Christian Association, which I'm just going to be calling the YMCA. So this Christian Commission wanted the government to keep the soldiers moral for a very specific and narrow definition of moral. So in 1867, Comstock moved to New York City, where he held a variety of jobs. This included porter, stock clerk, and dry goods salesman. He also worked for the Young Men's Christian Association. He lived in a boarding house with other young men and was deeply offended by the era's sporting culture, which I had to look up because I was like, what the fuck is that? When it's home with its feet up. Apparently, all the entertainment, and all I have in quotation marks, in New York City at that time was targeted at single young men. Can you even imagine advertising being targeted toward men?
What? Never.
I can't, right? What? It seems so long ago and far away.
Well, because then they convert their wives. They're the little women. You just got to convert the men and then, then make the women do the thing.
Yep.
They don't have eyes of their own.
Many of these men were in the city and on their own for the very first time. And this just deeply offended Comstock, that they were being bombarded.
Comstock needed to get
yes, he did.
his dick wet.
Additionally, a coworker confided that he had visited a prostitute and become diseased and corrupted. Comstock was convinced this had happened because the man read dirty books.
Like mysteries or...
Pornography was a thing then.
Yeah.
So he went to the
book. Did you read that?
He went to the bookstore and called the police to come. So, before you say called the police, for what? A provision in the 1865 Post Office Bill made it a misdemeanor to send any obscene book, pamphlet, picture, print, or other publication of vulgar and indecent character through the mails.
You know why I know this? Playboy documentary.
Yeah, Comstock's name probably came up there.
In a show I've been watching, they have multiples of it. It's like the companies or the products that built America or whatever, but they have one that's like the sin things. And so it came up, but they also covered Hugh Hefner in it and the issues he had at the beginning because of...
Comstock.
Probably.
It was his laws that... So he began hunting anyone selling what he considered to be obscene materials. Since he was still involved with the YMCA, the leadership there connected him to wealthy gentlemen who shared his ideals but had no desire to get their own hands dirty. Why? They have this nut job who they can just point and aim.
Right.
And then shoot at whoever. So they back him financially. And this allowed him to found the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice.
But here's the thing, though. We're still suppressing vice. People understand that, right?
No.
Abolition doesn't work on shit like this. Like, abstinence doesn't work on shit like this.
Oh,
and we wouldn't be moderating vice if it wasn't for the religious background, the Puritan background of the fucking country. It doesn't actually work, you guys. It's killing me. The gambling thing, I wanted to go off about the bookmaking and the Kitty Genovese story last week, because I was like, who the fuck cares if somebody gambles?
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares? Oh, plenty of people care. People like Comstock care, because they can't just run their own lives. They have to run everybody else's life.
And the people who profit off the people gambling care about it a great deal.
Right.
So the Society for the Suspension of Vice, or Suppression, the SSV, was supposed to monitor compliance with state laws and work with the courts to bring offenders to justice. So this is outside of the legal system, but they're supposed to be working with the legal system. But the organization continued to... there's a difference.
I know.
The organization continued to push for laws against what they defined as vice, attacking writers as well as targeting newsstands. Because newsstands are a big thing in New York. Mm-hmm. And, if you had anything they didn't like, that was considered vice. Here's a fun fact. New York State legislature granted the SSV agents the powers of search, seizure, and arrest, and awarded the society half of all fines levied in resulting cases. Yeah. I'm like, did no one see this recipe for...
Never do.
What's the word I want?
Disaster?
No.
Exploitation?
Yes, but that's not it. It starts with CON, and I hope you'll delete this because I'm like having such a massive brain fart right now. Taking advantage of the situation. Anyway, they sued publishers. They seized printing plates. Here's another fun fact. They shut down Mae West's first starring role on Broadway. Okay, to be fair, the play was called Sex, but who gives a fuck? I mean, really.
They do.
And West ended up in jail for 10 days. And she was a star then. But they were still able to do that to her. Mm-hmm. Notice, it was another woman. In 1873, he got himself appointed as a special agent of the U.S. Postal Service, a position he held until 1907, which was 34 years. From this position, he was able to successfully convince the U.S. Congress to pass the Comstock Law, which made illegal the delivery by U.S. mail or by other modes of transportation of obscene, lewd, or lascivious material, as well as prohibiting any method of production or publication of information pertaining to the procurement of abortion, the prevention of conception, and the prevention of venereal disease. He didn't want anybody having any fun.
No, because he wasn't.
Exactly. So he wants to define all of these words specifically the way he wants them defined. But ask yourself this. If you're thinking to yourself in any way, shape, or form, well, maybe he was trying to do a good thing, but he was misled. Why would you want to stop the flow of information about preventing venereal disease?
Because you think that they're not going to do it if they don't, or they're going to kill themselves off and then they're not your problem anymore.
It's because if you can prevent venereal disease, you can prevent conception.
Right. And heaven forbid a woman not have to deal with that.
And under his definition, students couldn't even buy anatomy textbooks through the mail because of the pictures.
I have a lot of things I'm not saying. You know how you were just holding back last episode?
Yep.
I got a lot.
So, on the subject of birth control, Comstock was quite opinionated. Anything that occurred naturally in the privacy of one's own home, such as abstinence or the rhythm method, were just A-okay by him.
It don't fucking work. But...
Those were ethical, yes. What the heck kind of birth control was even available? Because that was my question. What the hell did they have back then?
Well, condoms were actually pretty...
Sponges,
early, but people got arrested for condoms.
But they used sponges back then and douches, and basically a large syringe and anything thought to be spermicidal.
Yeah,
acidic like vinegar. Yeah, exactly. He later in life claimed that he culled and destroyed over 160 tons of obscenity, And yes, that means he was opening people's mail to cull it. It wasn't that it was a magazine, a brightly colored magazine that fell open. He was actively going through people's mail to cull all this
I
stuff.
had no life.
No.
He was truly pathetic. He was a sad, sad little man.
And
life.
They just kept getting, the laws kept getting more archaic and arcane. I actually have, it was amended in 1876. Every obscene, lewd, or lascivious book, pamphlet, picture, paper, writing, print, or other publication of an indecent character, and every article or thing designed or intended for, it's just, so anything, the way they kept writing this was that anything could be defined as a vice. Anything could be described as pornographic. So it wasn't supposed to be delivered. So they are hereby declared to be non-mailable matter and shall not be conveyed in the mails nor delivered from any post office nor by any letter carrier. Fun fact, when I lived in North Carolina, mid-80s, there was a company that I believe started in North Carolina. It was called Adam and Eve. I don't know if it's still in existence or not.
I think so.
Sex toys. Yeah. Probably some lingerie and sex toys. But you could not buy them, nor could you get the magazine. Could you get the catalog if you lived in North Carolina? And I was like, but it's right there. I mean, you drove by it and it was like, yeah, that's Adam and Eve. They had a big sign outside, Adam and Eve, but you couldn't go in and you couldn't buy their goods. It's like, I was like, really? There's a lot of fucked up things about North Carolina, but
a lot of fucked up things about the U.S.
Yes. So who did Comstock consider to be his enemies? So Margaret Sanger was one.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to pretend that Margaret Sanger was a saint who didn't have any issues, because there were...
Nobody is.
No. And that she did have some problematic points of view. However, she worked as a visiting nurse in the poorest neighborhoods of New York City. And she wanted women to have the choice to not have more children. In a time when, for instance, because I researched her. Yes, my cat was named after her. So when I was in grad school, I did some research on her. So a doctor would tell a woman, you can't have any more children because it will kill you.
Right.
And the woman would say, how do I not have children? And the doctor would give her advice like, tell your husband to sleep on the roof. That was honest to God advice that was given. I'm like, I can just imagine telling Jeffrey.
Imagine in that time period, although just telling your husband, well, you may not have sex with me because we have no other way to prevent. And first of all, he's going to say, the fuck you say.
Yeah, it wasn't her decision whether they had sex or not. Sanger produced a pamphlet called Family Limitations, which detailed in a pretty straightforward way how to prevent pregnancy. So what Comstock did was he had Sanger's husband arrested for distributing it, and then he spent 30 days in jail for it. That actually was Comstock's last case before he died. So he got to die for what was for him a triumphant note. Right? There was also Emma Goldman, who was a Russian-born anarchist, writer, and political activist. He really frothed at the mouth over suffragettes. Especially, if you can't control your own hoo-ha, you certainly can't vote.
Sad, sad little men, all of them.
Yeah. But there were two sisters, Victoria Clayton Woodhill, who ran for president in 1872. First woman to run for president. And her sister, Tennessee Celeste Claflin, who was the first woman to open a Wall Street brokerage firm. Like, why the fuck don't we have them on a quarter or a dollar bill or hear more about them?
Want me to answer that?
No.
Okay.
Because then we're going to really go off the rails.
I'm in a mood now.
Ida Craddock wrote marriage manuals and was arrested and convicted. She committed suicide right before she was sent to prison. A woman named Madame Ristel was a doctor who provided abortion care, who also committed suicide after being arrested. Comstock liked to boast that he was responsible for 4,000 arrests and 15 suicides. Here's the thing.
If you're religious, then you shouldn't be bragging about suicide.
One would think. So here's what he did, though.
Murder.
Yes. Comstock targeted women who were middle-aged or older.
Of course he did.
Because if you're in your late 50s or your 60s back then, and you're sentenced to 10 years in prison, it's guaranteed you're going to die there. And women did not want to. You can't blame them for not wanting, because the conditions were so fucking horrible back then. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to die there. And many of the people that Comstock caught are people what we would say today is that he catfished. So he would write to them or go to them pretending that he needed help for his wife. You know, my wife is sick. How can I prevent conception? My wife needs an abortion. And as soon as the person tried to help him, he would have them arrested. So to me, that just compounds it. His residency in hell. What a fatuous, self-centered dickhead of a man.
Can you picture, though, if you believed in hell, going to the gates and then getting turned away, how satisfying that would be when he got told?
Yeah.
Oh, no. You don't get to come in here. No. At no point did I ask people to treat other people this way.
Nope.
Bye-bye. And then you go, and you plunge right down there.
So I'll let you guess what was found after his death.
Pornography.
Oh, yeah. All those materials that were illegal to send through the mail.
Yeah.
He had a large collection of pictures, prints, and literature that he'd seized during his career, most of which were said to be the most extreme examples of
because
pornography.
These guys are always like that.
Oh, yes.
These evangelical ministers, always like that.
Oh, yes.
And people just give them all their money and follow everything they say and do everything they say, even though it's against exactly what these people are doing in real life. Don't forget, we live near the New Life Church.
The Crystal Methodist.
Oh.
So I'll end with a final fun fact. Throughout his campaign against what he considered to be smut, Comstock frequently spoke at college campuses and regularly published articles in various newspapers. One young law student was enamored of both Comstock's sensibilities, his dedication, and actually made a study of his methods of how he targeted the people. And would you like to know what that young man's name was? J. Edgar Hoover. Could you not just see that? I'm just like, what an unmitigated dickhead.
But he spent his whole life just doing that. He got off on it, is what it is.
That was his...
his porn.
That was his porn. And he kept it. It wasn't like he got it and destroyed it. He kept it.
Oh, no, but also making people commit suicide and ruining women's lives and ruining people's lives because they were doing something he didn't like is what it was his porn.
And targeting older women because we can't have them getting too uppity. Can't have them, being doctors and spreading the word that,
they can't have power. God, no.
That's not allowed. So, my sources, of course, Wikipedia. I don't even know how this came across my radar. But anyway, Wikipedia, NPR, and Case Western Reserve University. Okay. And I hope to hell we have learned something. We haven't. Because the same fucking thing is going on now. But...
Yep.
So now that I've riled you up, what are you going to talk about?
Oh. A dude taking advantage of a woman?
No.
I had a whole thing with Jeffrey last night. That's it. I gotta take a break from true crime stuff for a while because I can't. Because I was 90% of it is men doing terrible things to women and thinking they have ownership or entitlement or something to some part of them. And I'm tired. So here we go. This is Janice Trahan and the deadly inoculation.
Oh.
In January 1995, 32-year-old nurse Janice Trahan got some bad news. She'd been feeling unwell lately, kind of had this constant headache, and she finally went to the doctor about it. Lab tests showed she had HIV. She contacted her previous lovers, but they all tested negative. There's a big point about, well, she was really sexually active. So the fuck what?
How old was she?
32.
Well, so?
I don't care how old she is, so.
No, but I'm just thinking, that's a long time to be alive to have sexual partners.
We're talking a fairly short period of time, though.
But anyway, who cares?
Yeah. There's one she hadn't contacted, though, and it soon became apparent to her that while he wouldn't test positive, he'd caused her to become sick. When Janice was 21, she had her first son with her husband. Soon after, she returned to work at Lafayette General Hospital, where she was a registered nurse. She met a 36-year-old gastroenterologist named Richard Schmidt. They fell in love and would go on to have a 10-year affair. While Janice left her husband pretty early on, promised by Schmidt that he'd do the same and they'd be together. My God, how often this gets repeated. Schmidt never did leave his wife and 3 kids. Ladies, of course not. They never do.
No.
Janice got pregnant multiple times and was pressured into getting 4 abortions by him.
Oh.
But they did have 1 son together, and Schmidt paid her child support. He even came over for Sunday dinners, though I think that his wife just thought he was going to work. I don't even know if she knew he paid child support, because this seemed like that sort of thing where he was just under the table.
Well, and he probably paid all the bills and had control
precisely.
of the...
I don't understand how any part of a married couple does not check their finances and stay on top of them. I don't get it.
Or he had a separate account that she didn't know about.
Mm-hmm.
That could be.
That one, I get it. But I just don't get the number of relationships where just one of them does. I mean, I do the books and stuff, but we both have access to the account. We both know what we're working with here. All right. He often dined with extended family members at these meals. Like her brother was like, hey, we liked him. He assured us he was going to leave his wife. He seemed like a good guy at first. And then, of course, it just dragged on and on with him making these promises. Finally, Janice realized he would never leave his family, and she told him she wanted to break up. He got super angry. He threatened to kill her if she tried to see someone else or leave him. He told her he'd make sure no one else would ever want her, and threatened to post explicit photos of her on the bulletin board at work. Just a few of the things he threatened. In 1988, she started dating other people despite his threats. Though not necessarily officially breaking up with Schmidt, like they still kind of had she was still afraid to be like,
right.
She said he was super jealous and possessive and frightening. He proved this out by figuring out who she was dating, and then he would contact those men and threaten them if they didn't stay away from her. Again, a married man. At least one of those men would later take the stand to talk about Schmidt calling him and telling him not to see her anymore. It was in 1991 that she had her son with Schmidt, and though he paid child support, he refused to allow his name to be put on the birth certificate. Janice still went back to him repeatedly, saying she was in love, and the thought of being a family with him and her sons made her stick around, because she had that son from the previous marriage as well. She still had hope.
Right.
In 1994, Schmidt briefly left his wife, but moved back in with her almost immediately. Got himself a little apartment, and then he moved back in. It's like Look Who's Talking. If anybody remembers the storyline there.
I do not.
Talking. Kirstie Alley, the dude is married. He's their boss or whatever. She does work for him. I think she's like a designer and does his office.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, I'm going to leave her, I swear. It was George Siegel or whatever. And it's constant. And then he like moves out into an apartment. He's like, but her mental health isn't good. And there's always a reason, you guys. Fucking stop. I can't handle it. Janice broke up with him despite his threats in July of 1994. Basically right after he went back to his wife again. That was it.
Yay.
However, he'd been visiting her home throughout the years to give her occasional B12 shots. And he still had her key not long after the breakup, and she hadn't changed the locks.
That's a hot hint number 2. A, they're never going to leave. And 2, change your fucking locks immediately.
Yes, immediately. One night on August 4th, he showed up after she'd gone to bed and attempted to give her a shot. Now, she was sleeping in the bed with their 3-year-old son, and he just shows up in her room. So she's groggy, and she's like, I don't need the shot. Get out, But he kind of forcibly she said she felt the needle then, and cause she was probably just laying there with her eyes closed, like, leave. Even though I'm... Let's not victim blame, but for fuck's sake, he said he was going to kill her. Okay, anyway.
But
so he gave her a shot.
He had an established pattern of giving her shots. So it wasn't like... No, I totally agree. Don't... Fucking... No.
She said the B12 shots never hurt like the shot did. That it was extremely painful. There was something different about it. So when she got that positive test a year or so later, and none of her lovers had it, meaning she couldn't have gotten it from them, Janice went to police, realizing that odd late-night visit for an undesired B12 shot had been something else. Only the police didn't believe her.
Of course not.
They thought she was trying to get revenge on a dude who wouldn't leave his wife for her. Age-old story, so at first they didn't pay any attention, but Janice persisted, however. And they did ultimately decide to kind of look into it. I'm sure it was like a half-assed, fine, let's shut her the fuck up. Let's go just do this. Let's look into it. I mean, I listened to this on a Forensic Files episode, and they had the cops on there, and they're like, yeah, I didn't believe her, like, they admitted it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. They searched his home and his office. What they ended up finding was a sheet. It was a notebook, and there was a sheet where there were records of blood draws, and then there'd be a yellow sticker next to them showing when they were sent to the lab. Early on August 4th, again, that's the night he showed up in her bedroom, an HIV-positive patient had come in for an appointment with Dr. Schmidt. A blood draw had been done, but this was the only blood draw on the sheet other than a draw of a hepatitis C-positive patient 2 days before that had never been turned into a lab. HIV lives for a very short time outside the body. I learned that because I had to look it up when we had to clean up after my father-in-law had died. It is... So you would have to draw it that day, basically.
Okay.
To keep it fresh.
To keep it viable.
Mm-hmm. This wasn't ample enough evidence to point to him having injected her. I mean, of course it wasn't. But as of 1983, a method called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, had been invented. This method allowed for a type of DNA profiling from small amounts of blood. A graduate student at Baylor College of Medicine named Michael Metzger was studying HIV transmission for his thesis. So authorities went to him for help. I mean, this is actual. They're doing some work now. Okay, now they're like, this is weird, huh? A little strange.
Could
a little
this happen?
coincidental.
Yeah.
So they were like, is it possible to match 2 strains of HIV? They asked him. Which I'm like, I'm a little impressed that they thought to ask that, honestly. And he had never tried that. So he's like, I don't know, but it might be doable via something called phylogenetics. And that's basically a way of tracing the evolution of a strand of DNA. And if you people know me by now, you know that I went and read all kinds of stuff I'm not passing on to you. It's actually really amazing when you look up like what phylogenetics can do. But it would be super complicated for me to go into it. But I will say HIV is genetically made of RNA, which mutates faster than DNA, so it changes in every living thing it enters.
Okay.
Authorities gave Metzger Janice's blood, Schmidt's HIV-positive patient's blood, and the blood of 30 other locals with HIV as a control group.
Oh.
Long story
wow.
short.
They really did their due diligence.
They did.
At this point.
Scientifically, that still wasn't up to par, but... Yes, we'll get into that a little bit. Long story short, Janice's HIV was a close match to Schmidt's patient that day, and vastly different from the control group's blood. Now, so there was something that had occurred called nesting, which is really what clinched this deal, is that there were identical strands mixed in there, basically, so they could tell that it had been the source.
Okay.
And that they were related. Like, well and truly, that doesn't always happen. But with the control group, one of the things they went into later is that you have different types of groups that get it tend to have these different related strains. So, for example, at that time, say a group of gay men would have a different strain than people who were injecting and got HIV that way.
Or hemophiliacs.
Well, but hemophiliacs were getting that blood from whoever donated it. So that would be mixed.
Okay.
But yes, these different groups that were giving it to each other in the same, if they're sharing needles, they would have kind of a family. And if it's because it's being transmitted through sex, then there would be a different.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Okay. So that's part of what gets called into question later. This was one element of the case. But Schmidt's wife insisted he hadn't left the house on the evening of August 4th. When pressed, she admitted that she didn't have in her sights for about 20 minutes while she took a shower. So detectives took a practice run from his house to Janice's apartment and found they could get there and back and take the time to walk into her apartment and do a quick injection in less than 17 minutes.
Oh.
Less than the 20 minutes he was out of his wife's sight. Schmidt was arrested July 23rd, 1996, and charged with attempted second-degree murder. He had been practicing medicine throughout the investigation, still getting to do his shit. Phylogenetic evidence had never been used in a trial before, so this was groundbreaking, and they had to go through a whole thing where a judge could approve it even being used before the real trial began. The judge did approve it. October 23rd, 1998, after a ton of scientific evidence and experts went through the trial, he was found guilty and given 50 years. And there were scientists who dissented, right? Who said, no, this. But there was also another scientist who came in and did the same type of testing, but more correctly, but we'll talk about that. Sadly, Janice also then tested positive for hepatitis C.
I was going to ask because you said
that was a little foreshadowing. Look at that.
Oh, excellently. I was like, what did he do with the hep C blood? Who did he give that to?
Yeah, well, still apparently.
Her. So he mixed two kinds of blood.
Sure did, to make sure she would get sick because, like you said, I'll make sure no one else ever wants you.
What a... Ugh.
While it would later be said that Metzger didn't follow all proper protocols, like I've already said, during the trial, another expert was brought who used fresh blood draws, who blinded which is part of the protocol that wasn't followed before, and did things more correctly, followed scientific protocols, and his results were the same.
Nice.
So that actually was, they thought, the clincher. Schmidt has appealed several times, claiming the phylogenetic testing shouldn't have been allowed and was flawed, but the findings have been that the circumstantial evidence was enough even without the scientific evidence, and so he's lost those appeals. He came out for parole in 2015, but was denied. This year, he will be up for early release. His wife still waits for him, certain he's innocent. And I have so many thoughts about her that I'm not going to share, but I am, let's just say, absolutely disgusted with her. Because you know what, chick? He fucked somebody else for at least 10 years, but you don't believe he did this? Okay.
Fathered a child with her, and then when she wanted to break off the relationship, gave her AIDS and hep C.
Yep, that's murder. Both patients whose blood he stole sued him for breach of confidence,
Good.
But I could not find whether they won.
Oh.
I searched on their names. I'm sure there's a way to find it, but I'm only going to spend so much time. As for Janet, because one of them was a teacher, and basically this outed him because his name got released during the... As for Janice, despite having been infected before some of the medical advances that have made it so HIV is no longer a death sentence, she went on to get married in March 1996, and her sons have given her grandchildren. Sadly, she was pregnant when she got the diagnosis with that fiance, basically, with his child. And because of the risk the illnesses bore, she did abort the baby. But the hospital gave her a management position, and she's working there still in 1999. I feel like maybe they should feel a little bit responsible for this shit happening under their noses. So maybe that's why they gave her a management position. I could not find if she's still alive to this day, but I did find an article stating the virus was accelerated in her because the person the blood was taken from had an advanced form at that time.
Okay.
May have been full-blown AIDS at the time. I do not know for sure because it was mixed in the news, and so... My last finding of her was at his 2015 parole hearing, though, where she testified against him. And I find that encouraging because I feel like when she dies, because this was a landmark case, it may hit the news. And therefore, it would have been findable. So I like to believe that she's still alive, and I'm going to leave it there. Which means she's still got a fucking life. She got to enjoy being married to a husband who actually loved her. She got to enjoy grandchildren. She had a life, and fuck him. I hope he doesn't get out of prison in 2023. Because he's still saying he's innocent. Therefore, he should not be let out. Because you have to admit that you did something wrong to get early release. Hate him. And honestly, I hate his wife. Sources: Newsweek, Active Revenge by Pam Lambert in People, The Acadiana Advocate, A Viral Crime, Genetic Evidence, and a Perplexed Jury by Jessica Wapner in Wired. Just like two gross men. This
yes, that's what we should call this episode.
The bad man episode.
The bad man episode, or two gross men.
Yeah. There we go. I guess we'll just leave you angry.
Can we end it on a lighter note? Do we have anything positive we can... Not about these two men, but do we have anything... I'm like, shit.
Dig deep.
Not
in the current mood.
Wait, when is this going to be?
What's a good man story?
Well, I will say...
My husband cleaned the kitchen today before I woke up. Yay. That was so nice.
That's lovely, actually.
He does lovely stuff like that all the time. Because he's not a misogynist.
When this comes out, I will be getting ready to head to Florida for a wedding.
I'll be in Savannah.
I will get to see some family I haven't seen in a while. I haven't seen the bride in because she doesn't live near her mom, so when I go visit her mom, I don't get to see her all the time. So
I'll be drinking sweet tea.
I will not.
And shaking my fist at the choice of Southern desserts because I don't get why everything has to have nuts in it. And not chocolate.
And fruit.
Nuts and fruit. Those are snacks, you guys, not desserts.
So,
God damn it.
The last time I saw our friend, Becky, we were talking about tea and coffee, and she looked at me because I was saying something about wanting some herbal tea to drink at night. And I said, because I don't want to drink a regular cup of tea. And she said, well, tea isn't caffeinated. And I looked at her and I said, the hell it's not. And she looks at me and then she yells, carbonated. It's not carbonated. And I said, you are correct.
That's right. That's right. You're right.
And then we laughed and laughed and laughed.
But I think there are people that think that tea isn't caffeinated. There's a lot of misunderstanding about caffeination in tea.
Yes.
And I know this because when my husband was going to England and I was like, bring me some good tea.
Yes.
And he was going to this place in Harrogate that now I can get their tea here through like Amazon. Mm-hmm. But it was a really good place. And because I wasn't doing caffeine at the time, he brought me some green tea and some Earl Grey tea. And he was like, but there's not really caffeine in the green tea, is there? I was like, there certainly is, my dear.
There very definitely is. There's even caffeine in white tea, although I don't believe as much. But there's also not a lot of flavor in white tea. I'm sorry if anybody is like a big...
Rooibos, isn't it?
Rooibos. I used to call it Rooey Booey, but because I read it in a book.
I first tasted it in Vegas at some tea place that was there.
I do like it.
Yeah.
And I did get 4 kinds of loose leaf non-caffeinated tea. Not decaf. That just fucks everything up. Stick some stuff that was never caffeinated in your hot water. Don't take the caffeine out because it just fucks it up.
There's a British extreme author on my Facebook. And he posted today, gonna clean out my friends, he's a smartass. Gonna clean out my friends list today. Go ahead and tell me if you put your milk in before the hot water for your tea. And so there's this whole, 124 comments when I saw it.
Oh my God.
Posted it with people like, you have to be a monster to put the milk in before then. And to other people like, well, I guess it was nice knowing you then because I go ahead and do that. And they're like, no, you put in a tea bag first, then you put in the hot water. Then as you take the tea out, after you take the tea bag out, you put in the milk. And then somebody was like, except it says on the Yorkshire tea packages that you actually should put the milk in with the tea bag and then take it out. There's a whole conversation about it.
My God.
Yeah. And then they were like, but when I drink coffee, the milk goes in first. And I was like, you guys had nothing to do today, did you?
Yep. That's how you get people arguing about when to put the milk in their tea. And there are some people who don't believe milk belongs in tea.
There's a few that said no milk in the tea, but
the
vast majority said milk in the tea. And, and another thing, I've been paying attention lately because to people who have their birth year on their Facebook, so their birthday things pop up, you know?
And it says how old
And it says how old. And I'm like, you guys, you just gave your whole birthday, which is used on so many legal documents and so many password things. So Laird Barron, his birthday popped up today.
Oh.
And whatever he's done, it says 117 years old. And I was like, there we go.
I do have, I can't remember, somebody in my family has a different date. They have their birthday, but the year is different. And I can't remember if they're like 25 years younger or old. And it cracks me up when I see it. But I'm like, guys, no, don't put the year down. You don't actually have to put anything down, but don't put the year.
But you can make all of that invisible.
You can.
And I do have actually several people on our friend list who don't have their birthday listed at all. So if I know it, then I text them or message them or something.
And I will tell you, I'll end on a funny note. So Thing 2 got flowers recently. They were Get Well flowers. I'll just leave that part there. So I was like, oh, who are they from? And she looks at the card and says, oh, they're from your friend Becky. And I looked at her and I went, huh? And she says, it says Becky. And the only Becky I know is your friend Becky. I said, well, I know 2 Beckys and I haven't spoken to either one of them recently. So why would they just spontaneously send you Get Well flowers? And she's just looking at me. Huh. So then she opens the card up. There was like another flap to the card, and it was actually her employer's. But she's like, I don't know anyone who works there named Becky.
Oh, no.
And I said,
HR?
Well, it's kind of written like on the outside of the card. And I said, maybe Becky is the name of the delivery person. Because it was a woman who delivered the flowers. So that was just, so when I saw Becky Clark, I said, I told her the whole story, and she goes, well, I am awfully thoughtful. I said, well, Nikki says
sounds
thank
like
you.
what she would rely.
Yeah. She's like, tell Becky I said thank you for the flowers.
We ordered Grubhub last night because I had made us some nicely potent mules. And so we weren't going to drive for a snacky snack, but I wanted a snacky snack.
Oh, I hear you.
So I ordered wings, and I don't usually do Grubhub. A, because the restaurant staff don't get a tip. There's no way to tip the restaurant staff, so the driver gets the tip. And so we've just screwed over the restaurant staff. And also the fees are like, they doubled the cost of my snack. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was $22 for the food, and the whole order was like $41.
Oh my God.
And I tipped 20% when it wanted me to tip 25% to the driver. And I was like, it's late. You're not dealing with traffic. Bring me my food.
Bring me my
So
wings.
anyway, it shows this picture. And you get a little picture. And his name is Michael. And he has a big bushy mustache and glasses. And so we're sitting there, and I'm checking it to see where they are because they have a little map. And it shows you the little car. And I'm like, they're lost. If this map is right, they're super lost. They're on the wrong side of I-25 right now. And so we're watching it, and it's parked there for a while. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Are they eating my food?
That happens sometimes.
I know it does. I would have got my money back for sure. So anyway, I keep watching, and then finally it's driving up Garden of the Gods, and then it turns the wrong direction on Centennial going south instead of north, and I'm like, oh.
Was this a stoner delivering your food?
I don't know. And then all of a sudden, it's way down here, and it and the car magically appears at our house, and it says delivered. And I'm all, what? And so my husband checks the ring thing, and he looks, and he's all, well, Michael's wearing a skirt. And I was like, don't shame, don't judge. And he's all, wait, but no, for real, there's actually a woman outside delivering this. Everything on the app was wrong. I was like, maybe it's Michael's account and they just kind of split it. Like,
oh, hard to say.
But they give you a picture. If that had been an Uber driver, it'd be like, well, I cannot get into your car, ma'am.
This is not who is,
Where is your brushy mustache? Where is your tombstone stash? They all had like a
big porn stash.
Yes. It was, though. It's this big old brushy. And I'm like, that's not Michael.
Okay, now we can end. Now that we've lightened it up a trifle.
There we go.
Now that we've stirred milk into the...
Good day, y'all. Don't forget to check out Happy Gula Days 2.
Yes.
Wherever you buy your books online. Good day.
We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.